You know what we haven't done in a while? A one mic video. Let's go. First off, this video is not sponsored. However, Vanguard did send me this to try it out, and I couldn't help myself in doing it on a one mic video. I haven't done these for a long time, but they were the videos that kind of got my channel started. They were the first ones that gained any kind of popularity. They were the most fun videos that I had done, so I'm honestly not sure why I got away from this, but this seemed like the perfect situation to get back into it, because the last one I did was an R88, a stereo microphone. Here we have the Vanguard V44S, a stereo mic, although I'm not really thinking about it as a stereo mic as much as I am a dual element mic, and also explain that. For the duration of this session, we didn't really use it in a stereo context. We were using the two elements to our benefit. There was one situation where we did use that as a stereo, where we kind of made a DIY Leslie speaker out of guitar cabs for a B3. We'll get into it, but this was used on everything. Drums, B3, guitars, vocals, bass, where we actually have a way for you guys to get a free impulse response that we took during this session. So stick around to the end of the video if you want to know how to get that for free. I'll put a link in the description below where you can go check all that stuff out. But this is a little bit of a different way to do this for me. I wanted to hop on right after the session. Artist just left. It's dark outside. It's been a stupid long day, but this was really interesting to me, and I feel like some of the other one mic videos, there were some consolations made. Maybe I've grown as an engineer because it's been a long time since I've done one of those. Maybe this just works better for a video like this, but you'll see this sounds better than the other one mic videos that we've done. Let's just get right into it. On the drums, the song WallFlower's, One Headlight. Legendary song, legendary snare sound. The drums are immaculate. This is on a ton of engineers' reference lists, so it's a beast to tackle, especially if you're doing it with one microphone. And there's really nowhere to hide in something like this, so it has to be done at the source, and it has to be done with mic placement. And for this, having this variable head placement on this thing worked super well. You can see on this mic, we have a top element and a bottom element. On the back here, you can see the arrows for the top, where you can decide, do you want this omni, figure eight, or cardioid? And you have that with both the top and the bottom. So you can decide these independently of each other, how you want the pickup pattern and how you want the placement. On the placement, you can either line them up dead on, and you actually have numbers here. I don't know how easy this is to see on camera, but there's numbers. So you can see if you're at a 90, it'll go all the way to 120 degrees. And depending on the polar pattern that you have here, you can do a lot of different mic techniques with this one thing. I don't know why I slept on stereo mics as a whole. I know the last one that I did was an R88, which is a stereo mic, and this is technically a stereo mic too, although I'm thinking about it as dual element. But I don't know why I have never gotten a stereo condenser. There's so many things that make the process easier. I've had this as an overhead up for a while before I ever did the one mic thing. And having something that you know is phase coherent, you know you don't have to fuss with it at the mic, it's just done for you. You want an XY? There you go. You want mid-side? Boom. Set the bottom one to cardioid, set the top to figure eight, duplicate the track, flip the phase on one of them, split it left to right, and bring the mid back up, your mid-side. That's how I did the recording of using this in the woods, playing this on guitar, and I thought it sounded fantastic. The breakout box on this is equally as useful. You've got your input here, and then you've got mid-side if you want. On your outputs, you have your bottom and your top, and they correspond to the bottom and top element over here. And on the top, you can actually flip the phase, which is super handy, putting it in weird positions like I've put it in. But really, that top phase flipped is so you could monitor mid-side in real time if you didn't want to do the processing through your DAW. So super handy here if you want to do that, decoding in real time, technically. On the drums, I had this as kind of an augmented crotch mic. What I ended up doing was putting both elements in figure eight. The idea being if I could position this the right way, I could use this element because I was hanging this upside down in between the kick and the snare. If I could position it the right way, I could use that pattern to kind of null the kick for me, and vice versa, having the bottom one pointed at the kick and nulling the snare. What actually ended up happening was that the bottom was nulling the kick, and the top one was picking up both the kick and the snare. These were not split stereo in the mix. You'll see this is mono. These are straight up. So what ended up happening was I got this crazy fat sound, and then I got the ambience of the kit with it. I'm not really sure I completely understand the physics of what I did. If I just ultimately made an Omni mic, I really don't know. This is beyond my pay grade, folks. But I love the drum sound that we ended up with. The more we went and the more things we stacked on top of this, we kept coming back to, why do these drums sound so good? We don't feel like we're missing anything with these drums. And by the way, if you want to pick through these files yourself, they'll be available to the Patreon. Link down in the description below. Go check that out if you want to download these and play with them yourself. Next came bass cab, and from here on, all the cabs that we mic'd was basically kind of like a mid-side, but I didn't duplicate the track and do a traditional mid-side. What I'm doing is I'm using it straight up mono. The bottom element, which was the top because I'm hanging this upside down, was basically my cone speaker. I'm using the bottom one in a figure 8 as kind of like a room mic because it's nulling the cab that's right in front of it, but it's getting the room reflections. Super cool way to mic a cab. I have a room sound if I want it, kind of the ambience of the room that it's in, and I can control how much of that I want just by labeling it cone room. I did that on all the guitars and the bass, and it turns out this is killer on bass. We actually took an impulse of this, and if you stick around to the end, I'll tell you how to get that for free. That'll be on my website. I'll put a link down below. You can get the impulse yourself. After we did bass, we moved to B3. Tim had a crazy setup, and I'll let him explain it.
Okay, so this is, they call this a clone wheel. This is my uncle's Korg CX3, either from the early 80s or late 70s. I don't know which one. It's an analog Hammond simulator, so there's no digital trickery. There's even a tune knob here. So you actually have to tune the darn thing. Some basic EQ, percussion volume, percussion decay, but single set of drawbars. You can set it here. There is a built-in rotary effect, which as you can imagine isn't as authentic as it could be. A key click option here to simulate the dirty contacts of a Hammond organ where dirt and fungus and skin and dust get underneath it. So no key click, pristine, a little bit of key click, right where you want it. We are sending the high output signal into the Neo Instruments Mini Vent 2, currently spinning slow. And then I hit the switch with enough force.
Oh man.
We are sending out left and right to a Behringer power amp. And the farther apart they get, the sexier it is.
Our B3 we have access to just didn't work, so we made our own. And hopefully this stereo mic is gonna pick this thing up. This sounds so good.
I'm actually surprised.
Now, positioning this was kind of weird. The B3 that we would have used, a real B3, was actually not functioning right now. So we had a Leslie simulating pedal. I put that into a super clean amp, and then we lined up 2 guitar cabs in a 90-degree angle. Put this thing in XY right in the sweet spot between those cabs, and you had this massive stereo thing. It may as well have been a B3. I feel like I could send that to a whole lot of engineers and nobody would blink that it wasn't a B3 that was being mic'd. If you can, please tell me. I'd love to know the weak spot, but for the mix, it worked, and I think that is the real thing to think about here. Did it work in context? I feel like it totally did, but that's completely subjective. Moving on to guitars, we used a couple different amps. On one side, I used my Fender Vibra King, which is really grungy, really gnarly. On the other side, we used the Dr. Z into a Fried Egg Audio cab, just having a stereo left-right rhythm. And then we recorded guitars again with a lead, changing the guitar out, all the while still doing the cone and room setup on these things. then came time for vocals. This is something I didn't anticipate with this mic. Being able to use this straight up, both set to cardioid, hanging it in front of the singer, and using 2 different signal paths for the voice. I used a really, really clean preamp, and then I used something grungier, like a 1073 into a super compressed thing, and then being able to mix those 2 vibes is something super interesting that I could do in the moment live. Hey, real quick, if you want the IR that we made with this, go to the link in the description. It's called the Flowery Bass Impulse. See what I did there? Put in the discount code RSLV44S at checkout and it will be completely free. Otherwise it's $5. That's gonna last as long as it lasts, so you may as well go get it while it's free. Back to the video. I could print that down to 1 track if I wanted to and get a super unique sound using different preamps, different compressors, using this to shoot out different preamps on vocalists. There's a whole lot of situations where something like this becomes very useful that I didn't anticipate using a stereo mic, or again, why I'm considering this like dual element, not necessarily stereo. Being able to record 1 track lower, 1 track high output, kind of having like a parallel wet dry on the vocal as you're recording it, so the singer can hear it and there's no processing happening. The raws on this were really good. Honestly, better than I thought we were going to get. If you've never delved into stereo mics or had a stereo mic before, this is a pretty cool one to try. Just the general problem solving that having something like this can fix for you, not having to worry about phase coherency, at least within the mic itself. Being able to place this, set it, forget it, it's a killer overhead. I love it as a spot mic on drums now. It's gonna be really hard not to use it like that. Let me know what you guys think. If you were gonna have 1 mic, would you go stereo? Would you go single? This mic is $12.99 and it looks like right now it's on sale for $1,000. If you're in the market for a dual capsule or stereo mic, depending how you want to say that, if you want to check this mic out, I'll put information down below. Go check that out. It supports the channel. Have you ever had a stereo condenser mic? Would you ever pick one up? I want to know your thoughts down below. Give Tim all the love on this one because that dude can freaking play. I'm Resident Loser Jeremy. I'll see you in the next one.